Guys, what's going on? Well, in this video, I'm going to be chronicling everything I've done to my ZX6R. I've had a few of you guys reach out asking for a little bit more in-depth overview of this thing, so let's dive into it. Starting at the front of the bike, I have fitted this motorcycle with a set of Bridgestone S22 tires. The factory Pirelli Rosso 4s felt really skittish to me, so the S22s are my go-to tire. Love the way that these things feel, and it's the tire that you're going to see me rolling on if I'm on any kind of sport bike whatsoever. Next on this, let's start with, okay, so the cosmetic stuff. All of this came from either eBay or Amazon, so there are no name brands to this. So I don't have any links, but just, do a search on either one of those sites and you'll find these things. You've got a set of mirror block-offs and that tinted double bubble windscreen. Love the look of that windscreen on the bike. I didn't really expect much of, something that only cost maybe 25 or 30 bucks, but it works phenomenally well, super clear and scratch resistant. So yeah, go ahead, go for it. Buy with confidence, I guess. It doesn't act like a cheap screen at all. In fact, it acts like a more expensive one. And as for the mirror block-offs, look, I know some of you guys give me a little bit of a rash about not having mirrors on this bike. Guys, I don't like mirrors on sport bikes. One thing, they get in the way when I'm looking through the corner, so to speak. To me, they're just annoying. Also, I don't like mirrors on sport bikes because it's like you only get a good view of your elbows. So I've had mirrors, and relying on mirrors have kind of gotten me in trouble a couple of times. So I go ahead and just pull them off, do the head check, and I'm good to go. So personal preference on my part. If you like mirrors, then put mirrors on your bike, man. All right, so next on the list, well, I guess we're getting down to the middle of the bike. So full M4 Tech 1 carbon exhaust. Let me show you the can. There we go, the pretty side. So yeah, Tech 1 carbon with the 10-inch can. This pipe sounds amazing, performs exceptionally well. And to complement this exhaust, you can't see it in there, but that is a tune from Two Wheel Dyno Works along with the Two Wheel Dyno Works Velocity Stacks. So with the performance modifications wrapped up, this thing's making just shy of 127 horsepower to the rear tire. Revs to 14,500 RPM. It absolutely rips. I mean, look, it's 636 cc's, but it tries to act like it's a lot bigger than that. It's real feisty, and with the way that this bike is geared, and the only way I can describe it, it's like a terrier. It's just always wanting to play, always wanting to fight, always wanting to bite. I just really like that about this bike. And with the edgy styling of this thing, it just fits its personality oh so well. Out back, we've got that New Rage tail tidy with the LED blinkers, and I've also got an LED flasher so the blinkers aren't super crazy, super fast flashing. The obligatory shot down the can. So down here, we have the FT ECU quick shifter sensor, which is a solid state sensor as opposed to a spring-loaded. It makes the shifting of this bike so much slicker, improves the functionability of that quick shifter. I mean, this is really how it should have come. This is how a quick shifter is supposed to work. And we've also got down here, this little guy right there, that is a Racetorx shift shaft stabilizer. And what that does is it stabilizes this shaft. And what it's meant to do is to help this bike not lose track of what gear it's in. Kawasaki's can have a weird tendency to miss shifts because the quick shifter talks to the gear selector sensor. Anyway, all of that stuff works in concert, and if one part of it's not working, the whole thing just won't work right. But having a system with a solid state sensor right here makes all of this work so much better, feels so much more solid, and when I'm shifting this bike just with the clutch, it feels just like you're shifting it with a solid shaft, because in essence, that's what it is. And it makes the shifting feel even so much slicker in that respect. So yeah, that's going to begin the list of modifications to this bike that I'm going to say are mandatory. I'm going to touch back on a couple here in just a second, and I'll explain to you why I consider these things mandatory on this particular bike. So the reason why I say that the FT ECU sensor and the Racetorx shift shaft stabilizer are essential, again, this bike from the factory the quick shifter was not good. Miss shifts, and it doesn't matter how much, and you've got to commit to the shift with a quick shifter, and I am seriously committed to my shifts, and it would still get missed shifts, and it was very annoying, and there's a lot of folks that were complaining about that as well, and this can be common in other bikes. It's not just a problem with the ZX6. So anyway, get you this, get it installed, and you will be thanking yourself for the effort once you put that in. Oh man, I almost forgot an essential mod, or kind of essential. That is a super light 42 tooth rear sprocket. Now that is one size smaller, so it's one tooth smaller than the factory 43. And the reason why I went with that was to try to bring the RPM down just a little bit with this bike. And look, here's the thing, the ZX6 is extremely aggressively geared. With that sprocket out back, and if I went to one tooth larger up front on the primary sprocket, this bike would have the same gearing as a GSX-R 600. That'll give you an idea with just how aggressive the gearing is, which is a lot of fun, makes the bike super snappy, but it limits the top speed. But it's not just the top speed, you also lose like a certain amount of follow through with this bike. I'll give you an example. The ZX6R in 6th gear is RPM per mile an hour equivalent to my GSX-R 750 in between 3rd and 4th gear. It's just very extremely aggressively geared. So that's why you go with a little bit less gear. Really, if I were to do this any further, I've got the primary sprocket, the 16 tooth primary sprocket. I probably will have to go on this bike just to, again, bring that gearing down a little bit, because she's lively with this M4 exhaust, the full Tech 1 carbon exhaust, and that 2-wheel Dynoworks tune. Now, these are things that I consider mandatory with this bike, and I'm going to show you something on the tack here in just a second. So tune and exhaust on a ZX6R, just consider it as part of the cost of buying this thing, and I'll explain to you why. In 6th gear, it's really easy to tell how fast you're going, because basically, if you're going 100 miles an hour, you're turning 10,000 RPM. 120 is 12,000. You get the idea? So it's real easy to run out of RPM before you run out of mile an hour as you run out of RPM, right? Well, the issue also is when you're accelerating and you're running this bike and it's stock, one of the issues is that this bike lays over from the factory at like 13,000 RPM. And right here, you look at 13,000 RPM, you got plenty of room to redline. Well, the problem is that it just falls on its face. And so it will pull clean to say 130 miles an hour, 132 indicated, and then it'll just kind of lay over. That's no fun. But even when you're rowing the thing through the gears, the way that this engine runs, it's so silky, you're getting this thing up about 10, 12,000 RPM quite often. And if that ends up being where you ride your bike, you're going to find that you're running out of RPM pretty quick as the factory tune limits your RPM capability. That 2-wheel Dynoworks tune allows this bike to rev clean straight to 14,500 RPM. And with that one tooth down in the sprocket, this bike will easily cover an indicated 150 on the dial. And I mean, it'll do it with relative ease. It does it pretty quickly. So it accelerates much, much, much harder. Allows it to have more over rev too. Coming out of corners, you might be at 12,000 RPM. As you're accelerating through, you can buzz this thing out past 14,000 RPM when you start to hit decel again for your next turn. And you're not paying a price of just having a dead, just flat spot up in the higher RPM range. So get your bike piped and tuned. Last but not least, suspension tuning. This is the board. The bikes all get their own whiteboards. And this is the ZX6's whiteboard. And you can see just some of the maintenance things that I've got on here just as quick reference. But you can also see, like, where's my front sag? Okay, well, from the factory, my factory front sag was 43 millimeters. That's crazy, right? So it's adjusted 35 up front, 34 when the board was put together. Also, my shifter adjustment. Oh yeah, I need to talk about that shifter adjustment. Hang on a second. Time out. Sorry guys, don't mean to bounce back and forth on this, but this is kind of important if you've got one of these bikes. If you still have your factory sensor, which is that spring-loaded thing, you may want to lower your actual shifter position, your shifter lever position. You do that by adjusting your shaft here. The reason for that is that it feels like it's such a long travel for this thing, especially with that spring-loaded sensor in the way. Dropping this down, I've dropped mine down, I want to say by like 7 or 8 millimeters, if memory serves me correct. We'll see it again when we go back to the whiteboard, but that will put your ankle in a more dignified position, a more normal position, so that you're not feeling like you got to lift your foot up with your hip to try to shift this thing. Yeah, so anyway, getting back to it, this is actually the length of the shaft, but yeah, I actually adjusted it down. I want to say it was like at least 6 or 7 millimeters down so that it could easily shift it. And then I've got my, just the running tally of things that I've changed on this bike. Tons of changes with this suspension. As you can see, getting back to that, obviously you had to set the sag because it was way too soft for my 200-pound ass. And then also lots of hydraulic changes along the way. Anyway, you got to take good notes with that. So I always make my spreadsheets, and then I always have the blow-ups of the shop manual so that I can see what I'm starting off with and what I'm working with. And if I need a refresh on how to do something, I can just pull it up right here. And again, each bike has its own station that I use to reference all that. And guys, I think that pretty much wraps it up. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Just normal lever adjustments, adjust that to whatever works for you. Tire pressures, I like running 34 front, 36 rear on the sport bikes. This bike loves that, no exception here. These tires, these Bridgestone S22s perform beautifully with that. But with that, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Hopefully this answers any questions that you might have about this bike, the setup, how this thing gets down the road. It's a lot of fun. Again, super lively to ride. And it's just a real treat, man. Puts a grin on my face every time I fire it up. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for stopping by. And listen, if you made it this far into the video, consider smashing that subscribe button. It helps the channel out way more than you know. But with that, I'm getting out of here. Y'all take it easy.